I'm posting this because I don't want to use any of my social media accounts, in case none of this is actually happening and I've simply lost touch with reality. If that is the case, I'd rather keep it to myself until I can figure out what the hell to do. But I need to tell somebody what's been going on over the past couple of days, while I still can at least. And I do have to be honest, sitting here and typing this like it's a story is helping me disassociate from what I've just discovered. My name is Richard, but only my parents and grandparents call me that. To everybody else, I'm Richie, and I'm a third-year medical student in a city to the north of England. And all I know is, I don't know anything. I'll start at what I assume is the beginning. In September, I started a placement in an elderly ward at one of the local hospitals. In my last academic year, my clinical supervisors told me that, while my studious nature and medical knowledge are standing me in good stead, they've noticed that I'm still underconfident and awkward around patients. I don't know quite why that is. I try to be friendly and do whatever it takes to make the people trust you, but I can never seem to bridge the gap between personal and professional that some other students are able to grasp. Hell, I've never been that good at making friends. I wouldn't say that I'm unpopular, but more of a member of a group where I'm an afterthought, the person who you would think to text only after a plan has been made, or the last person that you would type in a group message. I mean, sure, it bothers me, but I've mostly learned to block it out so that it doesn't sting. But my studies have always been very important to me, in both my motivation and my escape. Because of this, I have resolved to try harder this year, and unlock that special power of being approachable. This tale starts 2 days ago, onward rounds where the consultant strides briskly and confidently through the ward, while his juniors struggle to write what he says in the medical notes before he moves on to the next patient, and the medical students tag along at the back like a flock of confused sheep. I'll change all the names. That's what we're taught to do. Heaven forbid I break our professional code of conduct along with everything else. The consultant, Dr. Keene, was going as fast as ever through the vast number of patients, like a heated knife through butter, or a razor-sharp needle in a vein. Within half of an hour, we were mostly through the barrage of patients presenting with simple UTIs or chest infections. He moved on to the bed of one Mrs. Bell, who had been admitted the previous evening, and turned to address us all. This is Mrs. Adeline Bell, 74 years of age, and no past medical history of significance. She was admitted last night due to a 3-day history of increasingly severe pain and self-reported rash across her peripheries and torso, which she describes as rotten and spreading rapidly. On examination, there is nothing of note. Her skin is normal, with no rash and no erythema. Observations are stable. The blood's normal. The CT head shows some slight small vessel disease typical of age, but nothing significant. He was interrupted by a piercing moan from Mrs. Bell. Jesus, man, how can you say this when I'm rotting away? It's getting worse every day. Please, somebody listen. As you can see, the patient is clearly distressed, continued Dr. Keene, ignoring the interruption. She lives alone and we cannot discharge her until she has had a psych review. In addition, she is stating that she cannot move her extremities properly due to the pain and therefore cannot feed herself. One of the medical students will now examine her hands for competency sign-off. Richard, is it? Please continue. I stepped up nervously to the lady. I had never experienced anything like this before, and I'm awkward enough with patients who aren't deluded. I mean, who aren't displaying clear signs of a condition. Mrs. Bell, my name's Richard and I'm going to examine your hands if that's okay. She didn't reply and she didn't look at me. Gingerly, I gently touched her left hand, only to prompt an immediate, piercing shriek. All eyes were on me and I had no idea what to do. I tried the right hand, but she tore away from me and covered in her sheets. What is wrong with all of you? Why can't you see that I'm sick? Why are you all pretending? Dear Lord Jesus, somebody help me!" she exclaimed at the room. She began to wail, prompting one of the nurses to hurry over to comfort her. The doctors, meanwhile, retreated into a huddle around the end of the bed, and I stood dumbfounded until one of the other medical students nudged me and then gently pulled me away by my elbow. I didn't even hear the rest of the ward around. All I could hear was Mrs. Bell, crying in pain and fear. Back at the doctor's office, we were debriefed and told that the lady was likely suffering from either some form of undiagnosed dementia, psychosis, or conversion disorder. She would be reviewed by the psychiatric team and then the social care team, but from a medical perspective, there was nothing more to discuss. The other students accepted this readily. It made sense to me too, but I couldn't shake the sound of the wailing long after Mrs. Bell had been given a sedative and had retreated into an uneasy slumber. That evening, I tried to immerse myself into assignments, but my mind kept returning to the events of the day. In the end, I admitted defeat. I poured myself a whiskey, downed it, and then sunk into a fragmented sleep, punctuated by fitful dreams and I couldn't recall the details upon waking. It was an effort to drag myself up and into work, but my way had always been to ignore discomfort and carry on regardless. Yesterday morning, I saw Mrs. Bell again. She wasn't a part of Round Ward as she had been medically discharged, but in between my jobs, I approached her huddled figure in the end bed furthest from the door. "Mrs. Bell, I'm Richard, the medical student from yesterday. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry if I hurt you." After a pause, she slowly and clumsily removed the hospital blanket from her face and peered out at me. "It's spreading," she whispered. "It started at my feet, but it's spreading. It hurts. It's rotting. What happens when it reaches my head?" I had no idea what to say. I mumbled something about it being okay. "You can see it, can't you? You know. Why is everybody ignoring me?" She began to sob, a broken sound emerging from a hoarse throat that had been crying for far too long. Terrified and ashamed, I backed away, apologizing. I walked out of the ward and I headed straight into the bathroom to try and compose myself. "Come on, Richie," I chastised myself. "She's sick, but it's something psychiatric. She'll be okay with the right medication. Pull yourself together." Yesterday evening, after a day of operating on autopilot until I could finally leave the ward, I decided to do what I do best, which was study. I couldn't fix her, but at least I could read about dementia, conversion disorders, and psychosis and educate myself. I have to admit, I was feeling really guilty about my earlier behavior and questioning whether I could even be a doctor if that's how I handled difficult situations. I tried to tell myself that I was reading for Mrs. Bell, but in reality, my actions were selfishly motivated. I was trying to make myself feel better. The library was mostly empty. Yesterday was, of course, Friday, and most students were out doing what students do best. I swiped into the library using my card and I headed for the medical stacks. Now, I don't know why, but one book instantly caught my eye. I can't even tell you now what it was called or what it looked like, only that it was fairly nondescript and had some vague title not typical of a textbook, like Sickness. I didn't even know what I was looking for within its dusty pages, but I do know that I frantically thumbed through them trying to find whatever it was. I was almost at the end cover when something fell out of the book and onto the floor. It was a scrap of paper, quite unlike the pages of the book. It might have been old. It might have just been an expensive kind of paper I'd never seen before. And upon it was a drawing. It was a drawing of a person, but it wasn't like an anatomical sketch that I've seen previously. It was more like an image from one of those unsettling medieval paintings, where the figure is contorted in torment as a result of a malady or sin. The figure was covered in what I can best describe as buboes, as in the bubonic plague. Necrotic, cankered, weeping sores that covered the body, and more horrifyingly, the face. One eye socket was completely rotted, and the mouth was stretched in a realistic grimace of pure agony. For 10 full seconds, I stood completely still, eyes locked onto that image. And then I bolted, dropping the image and leaving the book crumpled in whatever position it had landed in. I can't tell you why I did that. I don't know why I did that. All I know is that I had to get out, get away. I still can't explain that image. What was it? Who had put it there? And why was I drawn towards it like an epinous moth to a flame? My head pounded as I ran home, and my limbs felt like lead and my lungs were on fire. Yet I didn't stop until I was back in my room of my crappy student house. There I threw myself onto my unmade bed and I covered myself fully with my blanket. I don't know for how long I shivered under the blanket until I finally fell asleep, but I do know that my dreams are haunted by that image. The grimace of pain, the rotted eye, all accompanied by the sound of Mrs. Bell's wails. This morning, only my full bladder pulled me from my bed. I stumbled down the landing and into my bathroom, the cold floor tiles feeling like icy razors cutting into my feet. I relieved myself and I went to the sink to wash my face, briefly glancing into the toothpaste and shaving foam streaked mirror as I did so. And that's when I saw it. A dark blemish on my cheek, purple and black. Initially I thought that it must have been something that I slept on, and I tried to wipe it off of my face. But as soon as I touched it, a needle-sharp bolt of pain shot through my jaw. The skin felt strange, like a tomato that's overripe. And I swear to God, it looked like the flesh moved in a way quite unnatural to how your skin should. It collapsed in on itself, almost morphing, before settling back where it should be. I'm in my room now, at my laptop. The pain hasn't stopped and I don't know what to do. All I can hear is Mrs. Bell's tormented whisper playing over and over in my mind. It's spreading. It hurts. It's rotting. Can anyone help?